Hello, everyone. Welcome to IT Tech Talk. I'm your host, Joel Ward, and with me is Justin Simpson. Justin, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Can you tell my viewers a little bit about yourself right now?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Justin Simpson. I'm currently an entrepreneur. I have a background with mechanical engineering, done that for almost a decade. Definitely interested in tech and definitely involved with tech and have had my eyes on that for a long time. Have a background with nonprofits and working in ministry as well. And yeah, definitely all about tech and serving people through it.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, we've connected because we went to the same church, and I always enjoyed our conversations. I know we've been sharing a couple conversations back and forth, and I was glad to get you on this podcast finally.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. So today the topic is SpaceX, and Justin is actually he doesn't work for SpaceX like I said in my intro, but he is a very avid SpaceX lover. So I figured we'd bring him on the show and just talk about SpaceX. So Justin, SpaceX for you, space exploration for me is very fascinating because where we've come years ago to where we are now with Elon Musk, especially. Um, I think it's been very amazing to see the space race increase over the last few years as far as like technology and how we've gone. So, what are your thoughts on that? So for just a few minutes.
Oh, absolutely. I just think it's incredible, just seeing how things have transitioned. SpaceX wasn't even a thing 20 years ago. SpaceX started in 2002, and it's incredible how Elon Musk had this vision and all the technicalities and what he had to accomplish to get there. And now he has this thriving company that really is doing massive opportunities as far as space flight and commercial space flight. So I think it's just incredible of how far that has come. And now moving on to beyond the commercial space, now actually doing flights for NASA, getting crewed launches. I mean, it's really phenomenal to see how they have advanced so quickly. And just the different mindset that SpaceX has, it's more of a Silicon Valley mindset compared to a NASA mindset. So just really fascinating how they've been able to accomplish so much so quickly.
Yeah, and I like how you said it's a mindset. It literally is because NASA for the last few years has just I feel like hasn't really pushed to change anything, and whereas Elon Musk has literally gone through and he has revamped the entire space industry. And I have been looking at his site, and I'm on his site right now, SpaceX site, and there's just so much he's doing. And I know we're going to dive into a few things, but we're going to talk about their starships, SpaceLink. Um, I'm interested to see your views on how I don't. I think you watched it because you live in Florida, but the Dragon Space X flight from for that launched up to the ISS, which I
That's right.
thought was
Yes.
the coolest thing that Elon Musk has ever done. I know he has launched the Starlink things recently. He keeps doing that, but launching people into space hasn't happened in the longest time from especially from a privatized space industry.
Exactly. It was almost a decade since they retired the space shuttle, and we've been relying on Russia for literally buying seats at a very high cost, I might add, for taxpayer dollars. And here comes Elon Musk and says, "I've got a Falcon 9 rocket and I've got a Dragon capsule." So the Dragon capsule that's actually on top, it started as just being there to carry cargo. They had intentions of upgrading it for human flight. They've tested that incredibly. It is one of the safest capsules that's ever been developed. And yes, down here in Florida, I actually got to see this. So when they did the first demo launch, I actually drove up to see it live. It's Cape Canaveral is within driving distance from me. And actually, the first time they tried to launch it, the weather was not good, so I missed it. The next time, I still got to see it, though I was about 100 miles away, so I was able to see it streak across the sky. Really cool thing about being in Florida, you see spacecraft taking off all the time for several hundred miles away. So, but yeah, it's just really interesting seeing that. And that was their first demo flight. And now, of course, Joel, they have already moved up to actual like regular transit flights. So recently they just put up their first crew flight with a full NASA crew, which for NASA, it's four people on board a Dragon capsule, although a Dragon is designed to take up to seven. So they're just making incredible safe progress towards just getting humans, Americans back from American soil.
Wow, and that's see, I didn't even know that. See, that's interesting because I know they were talking about it and launching a new mission. But that's really interesting. I think what Elon Musk has done is phenomenal with the Dragon capsule. It's just it's interesting to get your viewpoint on it, because I, for the longest time, like, I didn't even know, and I actually, before this podcast, recently read into that we've been using Russia. And why, like, why couldn't we do something? And it seems like NASA's like, we're here as your space program, you're giving us taxpayer dollars, but we're not going to send people into space anymore. And now it's like Elon Musk is like, I'm going to change that. And I don't know if you ever listened into his story, but Buzz Aldrin and all of them who are still alive actually were really upset by how he's handling the space race. And it actually really upset him. Elon Musk himself, it was really upset by that, and he said they were my heroes, and that's why I got into this. And yeah, he wasn't happy when they kind of just dogged him for trying to do something. But you know what? And even though he's proved them wrong, they still don't like it. But I'm telling you what, he has done what every child, especially back then, child's dreams were. Like, he has
Exactly.
created the child's dream, and he has revolutionized the space race. And they
No
can
doubt.
complain all they want, but we have just sent people back into space on American soil, and I think that is the most incredible thing. So bouncing it around, Justin, the reusability. I want to talk about that. I know it's in our notes. So reusability. He has actually revolutionized how to reuse rockets, like how to land them and everything. So you want to dive into that for a few minutes?
Yes, it's incredible. And talk about reinventing and revolutionizing this industry. Up until now, every single time you launch a rocket, a multi-million-dollar rocket, the whole thing basically ends up in the ocean or discarded. As a rocket ascends, of course, you're trying to get rid of weight, and historically, you've just dumped it, and it gets destroyed. And we've almost grown accustomed to that's just how it is. Now, with the space shuttle, there was some improvements, right? So the space shuttle had two side solid rocket booster motors, and they would detach and they would parachute down, and they could be restored and reused. But again, there's still a lot of waste involved with that. With the space shuttle, you got to reuse the main vehicle, but still a lot of care had to be done to that. Such a large vehicle, such a wide open entry surface. And so Elon looks at this and said, this is ridiculous. You're literally throwing millions of dollars away. And I don't have the exact figure in my head, but I remember hearing Elon speak about this at one point. And again, don't quote me on this one, but it's somewhere around to the tune of like 70% of the rocket cost. It can be reusable. It's incredible because of, basically all that is fuel and things like that. So he was just looking at this is a massive opportunity if we can figure out to do it. They went through a couple different options on figuring out the best way to do this. They considered parachuting it down, and eventually they moved on to basically powered landings. And seeing this, if you've ever seen this on one of their launches, it is one of the most phenomenal things in the world. The Falcon 9 is the one vehicle that they had that's demonstrating this. And literally the rocket consists of two stages, an upper and a lower stage. The first stage is the lower, second stage is the upper. Their goal was to get back the first stage. The second stage is a little bit in a higher orbit, higher inclination, more difficult to recover, not as much cost benefit. The first stage is where the money's at. And basically, you will see this thing shoot up into the air and then turn around and then do a vertical landing. And this is a massive rocket. You understand this thing is it's 12 feet in diameter, and it's roughly about 160 feet high, if memory serves me. 140, 160 feet high, somewhere in that ballpark. They actually have their first successful landed core parked outside their office in Hawthorne, California. When I visited out there, I actually stood next to this thing, and you would not believe how massive this thing is. And it's literally shooting down like a pencil. And they literally bring it in at the last second. It deploys the landing legs and basically does the retro thrust and is able to land and successfully. But it's literally incredible to see how they've done this. So they have a quick stats on the Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is launched 111 times. Of those times, 109 of them have been successful. One of those has been a partial success and one's been a failure. That's phenomenal achievement on accuracy and reliability. And then within those flights, of those 111, 85 times they've attempted to land one of these boosters. 85 times, and they've been successful 74 times out of 85. Now, what makes this phenomenal is that, for for all intents and purposes, this is brand new. Nobody's ever done this before, and they're doing it consistently. So that is what has allowed them to have a better marketability. They have a better business model. They can offer cheaper flights. And really what that does is it literally drives down the cost to such a degree where their competitors are charging 2, 3, 4 times what they need to charge. And SpaceX's goal right now is that their boosters will fly a grand total of 10 times. Most of them right now, I think the most they've gotten up to is between 5 to 7 uses out of one booster, but their goal is to get 10 uses. And I'll kind of put a bow tie on with this. Elon relates this a lot of times, like the need for this to the idea of traveling by airplane. I mean, can you imagine if you were to fly from New York to LA, and when you arrived, they said, the pilot got out and said, all right, we need to scrap the plane and go build another one. It just is stupid. But with space, it's definitely more challenging. And Elon said, there's got to be a way to make this better. And he has done it, and he's done it phenomenally.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking at his site right now. I mentioned that, and I was looking at the Dragon X, and the Dragon X has flown a total of 23 launches, or the Dragon module, and it is visited the ISS 22 times and reflown 9 missions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and hearing that has all those, I don't know if you noticed, has all those missions been flown with a Falcon 9?
Yes. So right now,
Okay.
the only vehicle that is flying a Dragon capsule, whether it's a cargo one or the upgraded Dragon 2, or now it's called Dragon Crew, that is all flown on top of a Falcon 9 rocket. It does have the capability also of being on top of a Falcon Heavy, which is basically 3 Falcon 9s strapped together. And for our listeners, we really didn't explain this. A Falcon 9 is called a Falcon 9 because it has 9 engines on it. So a Falcon Heavy with 3 cores has
Oh, wow.
27 engines. So just that's kind of the background on that. But yes, they do fly on the Falcon 9.
So I don't know if anybody's ever looked at Elon Musk's SpaceX site, but take a look at the Dragon capsule. It is so futuristic. Like I'm looking at I'm not gonna do the video because I don't want it to play through, but just the interior, it looks so futuristic. It kind of looks like oh, what's the show called? Star Trek. Kind of looks like Star
Yes.
Trek looking and stuff. And I think Elon, he's like, I'm tired of the old. Let's bring in some new. And actually, I remember seeing, I think the whole control system was digital, if I remember correctly. Like
It,
yes.
it is mostly digital, and that's what's been revolutionary. There are some actual hard switches, but you look at the cockpit cabin of Dragon compared to a space shuttle or any earlier capsules, it's night and day. That has so many advantages, and go into that briefly, when you're flying into space, there are tons of procedures you have to follow. If you ever listen to a Spacecast, they'll be saying, you go to procedure 432.23.4. And the beauty of this is all those procedures are now contained digitally. If there needs to be a change in the flight for whatever reason, they just literally can send it up digitally to the spacecraft. Whereas before, you were carrying up literally books upon books of procedures to work through. And that's just one of the main benefits of having that digital cockpit. And I know you've done a recent podcast episode on Tesla. If you look at the two, there are definitely similarities you can see that are shared between the design aesthetic of Dragon interior to a Tesla Model S, for example.
Yeah, and I was just about to say that. I was like, it kind of looks like one of the Teslas that I just recently looked at. But yeah, so I want to talk about, and I don't know, it doesn't look like it's in the notes we were discussing, but the Draco engines.
Super Draco engines.
Draco, yeah, they look super. They just look interesting, like the shape of them and everything. I thought it was a trophy at first, and now I realize it's an engine. But
So
they're
what's interesting about these engines is that these are 3D printed engines. These are not raw machined engines. So this is 3D printed metal engines that gives them a lot of specificity whenever they're trying to make this as accurate as possible. The Crew Dragon capsule, which is the current model of the Dragon capsule, is equipped with 8 of these. The main use of these is for the emergency escape system. So if something were to happen during a launch and the main core, the main booster were to have an issue and you had crew on board that Dragon capsule. You need to get them out quickly. And so basically what will happen is that Dragon capsule will detach, those Super Dracos will fire, and it will move it away from the vehicle instantaneously. All this is pre-programmed. It's waiting for certain parameters to go the wrong way, and then it can safely get the crew away from that vehicle. They actually test this within the last couple of years, and they did it live, which was very unique. So they literally threw away a perfectly good Falcon 9 booster to demonstrate this in action. But this is just, again, one of the things, in my opinion, that makes that capsule quite superior when it comes to safety. But yeah, really incredible. Those Super Dracos are definitely a first of their kind.
And for those who don't know, those are just the ones for the Dragon capsule, I'm assuming, because the engines on the Falcon 9 are Merlin engines.
That's correct. Merlin 1D engines. So this has evolved over time. There are 9 of those, like we mentioned before, on the Falcon 9. And again, just highly refined, highly efficient engines. Those engines combined with the way that SpaceX does propellant loading is, along with reusability, is what makes SpaceX so interesting when it comes to the marketplace. So those engines are highly efficient. And then combined with the fact that SpaceX does supercooling cryogenic fuel loading. So basically, they take the temperature of their LOX, the liquid oxygen, to extremely low temperatures. So the lower your temperature is, the more compressed that fuel is, which means more you can get on board. It also means you have to load it the last second. So if you watch a SpaceX launch, a Falcon 9, you will see that they're doing their propellant loading within the last 30 minutes before their launch window. Just really fascinating. But those engines are phenomenal.
Awesome. So I know we discussed it in the notes, and I just touched base on in the intro to this, which you can hear when you listen to the episode. But Starlink is Elon Musk's. It's not really new, but it's new to me. And I've been watching several YouTubers actually discuss it and use it and test it. And I think it's a phenomenal idea as far as internet like usability. Because I was actually my last episode before this one, I was discussing internet and the speeds and everything. And I just think it's phenomenal that we have come so far where we can launch satellites up now and get internet to literally the corners of the world that don't have internet. So what do you think the opportunity Elon Musk has to use this application in different ways?
It's an incredible one. And first off, he's the one that's been able to create this opportunity because of his cheap flights. He can afford to send these are his own, mind you. This is property owned by SpaceX. Starlink is not another company; they own this. So this is just another way that they can increase market share and more opportunities. But it's incredible. I remember when they first started doing testing of this, some of the first people to use it were first responders that were fighting some of the forest fires out on the West Coast. Because when you're in remote areas like that, there's no way for communication. You've got cell lines that are cut, you have interference going on, and they can use this. And the speeds are incredible, Joel. I mean, like you're talking over 100 megs from Starlink, from satellite. It's unheard of. And the unique things is along with this, and you kind of touched on this as well. This will have the ability to provide internet access to areas where infrastructure is not in place and probably won't be in place for a very, very long time. And that just opens up a world of opportunities, a world of education, a world of jobs. All these things become available. But SpaceX has designed these satellites in a way where the technology on board, if you will, can accelerate as they are able to reprogram and update things. So I expect that you're going to see even greater speeds of this over time. And really just the plan for this is such a large number of these in orbit. I think it's over 60,000 of them, if memory serves me. But right now, they just hit their first milestone of over 1,000 of these in orbit. There's 1,015 Starlink satellites in orbit. There's actually ways for our listeners, if you find this interesting, and if you live in a place where that you have reasonable light pollution, you can actually watch these fly over you, and they are all like in sync. So you can actually see like a line of 15 or 20 of them go by overhead. There are places online where you can track and see that. It's a really neat thing to see.
Yeah, yeah, and I actually read something, and don't quote me on this. No one quote me on this, but I see Elon Musk said something about he wants to get up to 300 megabytes per second, as far as speeds in the next few months to a year. He wants to increase the speeds and get everybody on like faster internet speeds, where you can't where internet speeds were only like 15 megabytes. Now you're gonna have over 300 megabytes per second.
And that's just that's better than what you're getting in your home right now, and it's coming from space. I mean, it is incredible how he has set this thing up for not just current
Mhm.
success but for future success. So I'm just super impressed with how he has developed this and how he's launching this and just the affordability of it. And for our listeners too, what's interesting is that right now you can actually test drive Starlink if you wanted to. And Joel, you've mentioned you've seen YouTubers do this, and the cost is not outrageous if you really had a use for this. It costs $500 to get a specific dish to receive that signal, and then the plan right now is $100 a month. Now that might seem costly, obviously, for home use, but again, thinking about certain scenarios, like again where infrastructure does not exist, it becomes a highly attainable option and product. I'm really fascinated at where this is going to go, and I really do think, Joel, you give this thing some time. I think this could be a competitor with our physical landline infrastructure that we currently use. And I think it'll do one of two things. Either it'll be a competitor that other people will start using Starlink for personal use, or it's going to drive landline costs down because this is going to be a cheap competitor of it. And again, you think about this. Think about all the maintenance that's required on our current infrastructure to run fiber cables, of when cables are down, when upgrades you made to the system. You got satellites in orbit that all you need to do is reprogram them, and they're not going anywhere. And you got to replace them over time. But I mean, once they're there, they're basically there. It's like our GPS satellites. So it's just really fascinating. Just how this thing is coming about. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I'm blown away with the fact that it looks like it's gonna be something that we can definitely use. Like you said, it's like fiber cables and stuff, and all the maintenance that comes with it, and then the downtime, whereas you can just quickly send a code or something up to a satellite, and it instantly fixes the problem. Um,
Exactly.
Now I know we haven't really touched on this yet, and I know listeners are gonna be like, why haven't they touched on this yet? Mars
Oh
is
yeah.
Elon Musk's dream, and I personally, I've been watching the rover go
Mm-hmm.
around and collect information and stuff. And I've just there's so much that we could talk about as far as Mars. But what are your thoughts on Mars as far as like what Elon Musk's dream is and if it's obtainable?
So Elon Musk's dream that started this whole thing from the very beginning was Elon Musk wanted to make humanity a multi-planetary species. In other words, he wanted to provide a way that there would be human beings on multiple planets so that it really preserves our existence in the case that something horrible would happen to the earth, that potentially life could continue elsewhere. And Mars is just the most suitable place that we have in our vicinity, in our stellar neighborhood, if you will. And it's an incredible challenge. And you've seen Elon Musk take this on head on. So the biggest challenge and where you get to Mars is it needs to be attainable. It needs to be actually cost advantageous, which is where the reusability factor comes in. It needs to be safe. And this is where you see
Mhm.
SpaceX really just designing at such an incredible level and at a fast paced level. And also, probably the biggest challenge is you need to be able to do this in sizable steps. And up until this point, when we've talked about
Mhm.
colonizing anything, whether it's putting people a permanent place on the moon or Mars, the question always becomes it takes a lot of effort, a lot of power, and a lot of equipment, and it takes a lot of trips. So, how can we make this better? And so, before we dive into that solution, I want to make sure I cover all the bases. I think this whole idea with Mars is incredible. I think that he will achieve it. I
Mhm.
think right now, Elon actually has a little bet going on that he says by the end of 2025 that he's going to have footprints on Mars by humans. I'll be honest with you. I don't know if he's going to hit 2025. I do think you will see it by the end of this decade. And I definitely and nothing against NASA, but at the rate SpaceX is going, I think SpaceX will achieve this first prior to any NASA vehicle. I really do believe that. I could see a scenario where it's a SpaceX vehicle with NASA astronauts on board, but I definitely see that as probably the direction it's going to go. And before I go into the solution, what he's designing, is there anything you wanted to kind of unpack a little more about Mars in general and just that goal? It's incredible.
Yeah, so we don't have much time left, but I do want to unpack this. So multiplanetary is just phenomenal because thinking about it for me, I never thought in my lifetime I would even hear that like it being an option. I know they've been talking about it for years, but we had people on the moon, but we never colonized the moon. So like thinking about colonizing something like Mars, which is very it's not a breathable planet. It's not like Earth, but colonizing it and having capsules and stuff and just being able to manufacture stuff up there and grow stuff is a phenomenal thought. I remember watching the movie with I can't remember his name. But the guy that did the Mars movie where he was trapped on Mars, just thinking about that, watching that movie was like that could happen. We have to go through all the scenarios because Mars is new to us. There's so much we don't know. And speaking of interplanetary, I heard it takes up to 6 months for that rover to get there. So 6 months is not bad. They were saying it was gonna be longer. So imagine if we could get humans 6 months in. That's not long, but 6 months to um Mars, and that would
Right.
just be a phenomenal idea to get them 6 months in and 6 months back. They need to come back, and having something where they could come back as well. So, yeah, let's unpack this. So what is your thoughts on interplanetary and or multiplanetary, as I should say, and what do you feel is necessary for us to achieve this goal?
I'm totally down for it. Like if I had an option now, I have to pass this through the wife, of course, but I would definitely go. I mean, like I think that's an incredible new venture. It's worthwhile. And I think that's the thing is people look at this and they say, this costs so much money. And if it was a government job with, our taxpayer dollars, I can see that. But this is a business. This is a company. This is where Elon wants to put his money, wants to put a stake in the ground, literally. So I think it's definitely worthwhile, and I think it's exciting. The biggest challenge is how can you do it? And really, you need a new vehicle. And this is where Starship comes into play. And Starship is phenomenal. Starship is unlike anything we've ever seen before. This will be, when it comes into existence, this will be the largest, most powerful rocket ever designed. It will be larger than the Saturn V, which took our astronauts to the moon. It will be able to haul so much more, and it's reusable. And that's what makes it fascinating. But Elon's goal with this is, and this has changed slightly over time, but roughly to be able to send, get this, 100 tons of passengers and equipment to Mars. And you were talking about transit time. The way that Mars and Earth associate each other on their orbits, there is a window every 2 years where Mars is at its closest. That is the launch window. That's the best time to go. And typically in the past, sometimes flights have taken 8 or 9 months to get there. Perseverance took a little bit less. Elon's goal is to hopefully get it down to about 60 days. And a lot of that depends on fuel. I don't know if that's actually achievable or not, but again, you're talking about you got to keep 100 human beings alive. You got to shield them from radiation on that journey. And this is where Starship is just the vehicle equipped for this. It's going to be fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking at right now, and it's just it's a futuristic, phenomenal vehicle. Where Mars though, like there's so much we don't know as far as what's going to happen to humans when they get there. Like, is it going to is something bad going to happen, or are they going to get trapped there? I mean, if they get trapped there, we can't just send rescue like immediately.
Nope.
So there's so much that can go wrong, but also if we get humans on Mars and they're able to come back or even just colonize a little bit and then come back and leave our footprint there and leave America's, especially America's footprint there as the first, astronauts to be there. Uh, it's a phenomenal thought. Now, like you said, there's radiation they got to look out for. There's all this stuff. Space is a very, um,
Hostile.
yes, I was just going to say a hostile environment. Um, whereas anything can go wrong. And you don't going that far out, going 6 months out with a human space flight is could be dangerous. There's no idea what's really out there around the space ship going on. And when we sent a rover, that's a rover that could be replaced. humans cannot be replaced. So sending humans 6 months out, or 8 months out, even to get to Mars with all this equipment and stuff, and something to go wrong. I mean, I'm still for it, but I'm really I want I there's just no, it's unseen what could happen because we've never been that far out.
That's right. And you're right. It is a major risk. And I think there are some advantages that too, though. When you take 100 people, you're risking 100 lives, yes. But if there is a problem, you now have 100 minds and 100 wills that are bound together to make it happen, to be able to fix something. And that's a lot better odds if you only have a small team of, say, 4 or 6 people. The way Elon has planned this thing out is I think you would see a lot of preceding launches that would leave equipment there using the same vehicle, and then you would see people arrive. But Elon has thought this thing down to like every possible scenario. So even the engines and the fuel that is used on Starship is not what we typically launch with. It is fueled by resources that we can get off of Mars. Because if we send something out there, we're not going to have the propellant to get it back. So they're going to have to be able to manufacture it out there and pull it from the atmosphere. So literally the fuel that is burned on a Starship spacecraft is methane based. And just again, brand new achievements being able to do that. You had mentioned about, like what will we find out there? One of my biggest things, Joel, personally, is we have never dug more than a few inches into any celestial body ever. We've never had the equipment really to go down. I would say at most we've gone 18 inches. Imagine if you showed up to Earth and you only dug 18 inches down into the ground. And again, forget about, the amazing life that you would find, but I'm talking about resources or other things that could be beneficial. We have no idea what is under here. Could you imagine, for example, if they found some sort of resource that could be used as fuel, or maybe some other compound that could be useful in building rockets and accelerating further expansion in space? Look at this from a practical standpoint. I mean, I don't even know if this is possible, but what if they found like some kind of jewel or gem or Martian diamond? I mean, can you imagine like the value of that? Like I proposed to my girl with a Martian diamond. I don't know, but like I think there's so much potential underneath that we haven't even explored yet. And this is on top of, what if we found water? What if we found signs of life? There's just so much that we haven't dove into yet. And I don't think we can. I mean, that Perseverance rover is incredible, but you put a human mind, a human brain, and a human team on Mars, I think you're going to get some incredible results. So I'm super stoked about Starship. I follow the testing out in Boca Chica, Texas. Cannot wait to see that vehicle fly.
Yes, and well, that's our episode though. But I'm so glad we got to talk about this, and I hope it really gave some people more insight on these spacecraft, because I don't think people really know, or understand how much thought and process has gone into building all these rockets, and how much time Elon Musk has spent up at night, thinking of new ways to innovate, like just like with the Mars thing we were just talking about, how he's using methane, like all these things that NASA has never thought of or done, but Elon Musk has revolutionized, like I said, the space industry. And even though he has some haters in that, he has, compared to Jeff Bezos, done more and gotten farther with his space flight. So, yeah, Justin, I'm glad you got to join me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Yes. So everybody tune in tomorrow and hear Zack Snyder join in. We're gonna be talking about how the churches have changed over the years with tech. So tune in to find out. Thank you for tuning in.